Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Welcome to my podcast, where we are going to talk about a lifestyle with dogs and throw in a few life lessons along the way. Whether you're a hound hunter, bird dog enthusiast, running setters, pointers, retrievers, or a flat-out running dog junkie, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Heath Hyatt, a certified law enforcement canine trainer with over 3 decades of personal and professional training and handling experience. It's time for me to pay it forward. So grab your leads, lace up those boots, and come and join me on this lifelong process of teaching, training, and learning. Are you looking to unlock your dog's full potential and give them the best nutrition possible for peak performance? Then look no further. Inukshuk has what you're looking for. Inukshuk's nutrient-dense formulas are crafted to keep your dog's energy high and performance top-notch. Packed with premium proteins and essential fats, Inukshuk delivers the balanced nutrition your dog needs to thrive. From hunting dogs to police canines, Inukshuk is trusted by professionals. Give your dog the power of peak performance with Inukshuk Professional Dog Food. Welcome to another What's Up Wednesday. Thank you guys for taking the time to give us a listen. We got some good things to go over today. First and foremost, I had asked everybody to go and leave a review a couple weeks ago. I only got a couple, but hey, couple's better than none, right? But I want to give a shout out to those guys, and I'm going to go over one of the reviews, and we're going to talk about it briefly, but I've decided that it's such a great topic that I'm actually going to do a whole podcast on it. So thank you for leaving the review. I'm going to read what you left, and I'm going to kind of touch base on it, and then we're going to do a podcast on the whole content that you sent in. So it said, Heath, I really enjoy all of your content. What is most helpful is anything training. I'm not running bear dogs, but acquired my first squirrel dog just 9 years ago. A lot of your methods transfer. And guys, that's the one thing I try to emphasize is dog training is dog training, and you can use different tactics and different methods and techniques no matter what kind of dog you have. I don't care if it's a bear dog, a coon dog, a bird dog, a tracking dog, a police dog. Like, we can incorporate all kinds of those methods. And that's what has made me better at what I do, is taking a lot of the stuff that I've learned from the law enforcement world, from the sport dog world, and other sports, i.e. retrieving or pointing or, whatever. And that's helped me become a better handler and trainer. So let me finish this up. It said, I experienced an issue recently I haven't heard discussed. I have started 5 different puppies over the last 5 years. 2 of them, the same issue. At 8 or 10 weeks of age, I began slowly introducing gunfire. First with loud clapping while they are eating, progressing to a 22 rifle, and then to a 12 gauge. No issues with either pup. Had them not flinching with the 12 gauge over their head by 4 or 5 months old. This work was done different years, but late spring, early summer. The problem came in late July, early August. Upon hearing shots, both pups were extremely gun nervous, resulting me to have to start all over. What are your thoughts? I have suspected 4th of July fireworks. My closest neighbor is 200 yards away from the kennel. It's that, or I'm going too long without shooting around them. What do you think? The other 3, no issues. All pups are mountain curs with different bloodlines. So, again, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for leaving us a review. If you guys will leave a review and I can touch on it, or we can discuss it, or it's a great topic, I will be glad to do that. So, my first thought is, it seems like you're setting up the steps in the correct method. Not being there and not seeing how you're doing it. The only thing, like I said, I'm going to do a podcast on this, but the only thing that I would ask is, all right, you're starting out with clapping, moving to 22s, and then up, to 12 gauges. Well, we got to look at the fear stages of the pup. That's one thing. 8 to 11 weeks old is the first stage, and then at 6 to 14 months old, at what point in time are those pups when you're having this problem later on, because they go through different stages? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, and I've learned this through introducing our police dogs to gunfire, because they have to be neutral too, is we always start the dogs away from the noise. So if you're 22, it's just a pop. But when you introduce the 12 gauge, it's a percussion, kapoof, and it's completely different. Our police dogs, my dog, let's just take my dog, Pino. Pino's solid around handgun and AR fire. Boom, no problems. But when you introduce the shotgun, his whole demeanor changes. He still performs his job, but that percussion off of that weapon, especially if it's in a close proximity, it changes his demeanor. The ears are not as up as high. His tail will go between his legs. Still does his job, but I can see a dramatic change with that. So how did I fix that? Through one of my mentors, we always bring the dog into the gunfire, not the gunfire into the dog. So what that means is, and I'm just going to use a football field for an example. That's an easy view for everybody to understand. Is I'll have somebody in the end zone of the opposite side, and they'll be firing off some rounds. And let's just use a handgun to make it even across the board. So somebody's in the end zone and they're popping off some rounds, just boom, boom, boom. Nothing rapid, nothing crazy. You pull into the other side of the end zone across the field. You get the dog out. The gunfire's already going off. Like, it's already, bang, bang. Get the dog out. We do a short obedience session. Dog pays no attention to it. We put him back in the car. We praise him, put him back in the car. The next session, we move up to the 25-yard line. Same process. And we just continue to move him 25 to the 50 and then to the 25. And then the next thing you know, we're on the 5-yard line and the dog's not paying any attention to it. So we progressively, slowly move that dog into that fire or gunfire. So are you starting away and moving into it so the dog can adjust? And is the dog doing something during this time period? I know you said you were feeding. So 22 to a 12 gauge. That's a pretty big jump. So my question would be, we use a cap gun too. The 209 primers, we use a cap gun a lot. Are you going from 22 to a 410 with low brass, then a 20 gauge low brass, and then maybe a 20 gauge with high brass and moving up to a 12? Are you progressing that way? Or are you going from a 22 straight to a 12 gauge? And again, every dog's different. Like I said, I'm not there. I'm not seeing how it's going. I'm not seeing the behavior of the dog. But to say that you got to start all over, there could be something going on. To say that, am I waiting too long to continue gunfire? No. And if that's the problem, then why don't you just wait a little bit later to start this whole process instead of doing it at 5, 10, 12 weeks old, whatever it was, up to 4 or 5 months? Why don't you can do your clapping. You can do, we use balloons a lot. especially if we have a dog that's very sensitive. We'll take a balloon, blow it up, pop it, pop it, pop it. You can do that stuff at a younger age. Let the dog mature. Let him get through some of these fear stages at 8 to 11 weeks old. And then at 6 months old, again, you're looking at another stage you could be going through. I'm not saying they are, but they could be. And then going from there. That would be my initial conversation with you is let's look at these things first and then move from there. So thanks for the feedback. Thanks for going and dropping us a comment and a review. I appreciate it. And like I said, if you other guys do that, I'll try to get back with you too. Every one of you are appreciated. So let's roll into what's going on around here. I know we're a couple weeks behind. Our season is getting close to an end, our training season. But it's been a couple weeks ago. It's been extremely hot. I know most of the guys are experiencing the same thing, and dry. Holy cow, is it dry. Ground as hard as a rock. But I went out one Thursday morning, and I was loading the dogs up, and I actually had to put a light long sleeve on them. It's starting to feel like fall. But you know how nature is. They just tease you. For 2 days, it was nice, and then the next time I went hunting, it was back up, and it was hot again. But fall's coming, like it is coming. The leaves are starting to change a little bit. I think a lot of that's due to how dry it is. We did have a good storm the other night, but fall is upon us, and I can't wait. All right, let's talk about something that I know a lot of people do, and maybe I've got to rely on it, but it definitely makes things a little easier. Maybe I'm getting lazy in my old age. I don't know. Let's break down some rigging issues that I've thought about and that I've had this year. And, you know, when I'm out I've done a lot of hunting by myself this year. It gives you time to set and process and think about things. And like, I don't know that I've thought about it so in depth as I have this year, but you guys know I've got the bee litter, and I've been trying to hunt those guys separate and doing some things with them. And this is kind of what started the wheels turning in the brain. You're like, okay. What about this? What about what's going on here? And again, I'm kind of break it down for some of the things that I've seen and noticed this year with the younger dogs. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the older dogs. So typically, and I see more, like I think I'm one of the very few people that have a box where my dogs can't stick their heads out the hole. I don't like that. That's not for me. That's not the way I train. But a lot of guys have the head holes. The dogs stick their heads out. And I'm assuming that's the way you start your dog's rigging. Well, for me, like I want my dogs up on top of the box, and that's how I start mine rigging. I don't start them from inside the box. I think inside the box builds a little bit more confidence. You know, the dogs can stand there. It's not like being up on top of something. And you guys know, you've seen it. I feed my dogs on top of the truck. I have them up on top of the truck at a young age. As soon as I start making, the trips with them, like I'll put them up and ride them, a little ways and then bring them back to the house. Nothing major, just, short, quick trips with them. So the bee litter, I've been running dogs, had to leave dogs at home for whatever reason, being hurt or this or that. I'm pretty sure one of them got snake bit this year. Everything's good, no problems. So I've had an opportunity to put the young dogs on top of the truck, and I normally don't do it at this age. They are a year old, and I know a lot of people's got dogs rigging at, 7, 8, 9, 10 months old. But I'm not in a rush. I'm probably behind the curve on that a little bit because I'm not in a hurry. So I've had an opportunity to put my young dogs up. All of my dogs will jump up on the truck, the puppies. You drop the tailgate, they're on top, and they're with everybody else just having a ball, and it's a good time. So I decided that Briggs was the first one that I actually did this with. I don't remember what dogs I had up, but anyway, I put Briggs up with an older dog or two and started around the mountain. And I noticed that he was good for a little bit, and then he started sitting down, and then when he sit down, he would push up against another dog. So that shows me that he's not as comfortable riding up there as I thought he would be. So I put him back down after a while and started switching out dogs. I've put Bronx up. I put Bridger up. Bridger is the natural. Like, he loves it up there. He's up there. He's working the wind. He's doing what you want an old dog to do, even though he's not old. He's not struck anything. And in the time or two that I've had him up and the old dogs are struck, he's still trying to search and figure out what's going on. And that brings me to one of the things that Dale Cameron told me years ago. Dale told me that he never, ever starts his dogs rigging until they can trail and tree successfully, and by themselves on top of that. Like, he likes them to do it by themselves. So as I was going through the dogs and putting them up and switching them out, I noticed that all the dogs were different. And one of the, like I said, Briggs, I'd have to ride him a little shorter. I mean, about 15 minutes, I'd put him up, and then I'd put him back in the box and let him, just trying to build that confidence in him. Bridger, you could put up there and ride him around for hours. He didn't care. He loved being up there. So that brought me to the question is, like, how does everybody else start their dogs rigging? Like, if you're doing it from in the box, in the truck, and you have head holes for the dogs, it would seem to me that it would be a little bit easier than putting the dogs up on top that maybe are not as comfortable with riding up there. And I'm thinking, okay, so is this setting me back a little bit by not doing it the other way? Is it a big deal? So I literally just what I told you. I started switching them in and out. And like I said, Bridger's my dog that I can just put up there. He don't care. Now, I don't do it a lot. Like, I put him up for 30 minutes, 40 minutes one day, and I put him back down. I've had him up there a couple times by himself. I've taken all three of the young dogs by themselves a couple of days just to work on some foundation stuff. No old dogs, no dogs other than the pups. I've taken them, I've put them out on some deer. I've roaded them. I've just taken some time with just them and to work on just them. And the days that I've done that, it's been rainy or dreary, or, my other dogs needed a break. So that's what I've done. And I got to thinking about Dale and what he had told me years ago. So the first time that I ever rigged a track was back in the mid, 2005, 4 or 5. I don't know. I had finished hunting that day, and me and one of my buddies, Chris Irvin, we were coming out of the mountain, and we were coming out this an old road. I had put Belle and Ring up on top of the box. Now, I did not hook Belle. She would stay up there, no problems. And I did, but that day I did not have her hooked. I had Ring hooked because I was afraid he'd jump off the truck. And we're coming around this old mountain road. It's up in the day, it's 11 o'clock. And I mean, all of a sudden that box explodes. Belle's off the side. I turned Ring loose. Smokey was in the box. We ended up treeing a bear, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour later. That was my first experience, and it was on accident. But I will say, those dogs were 3, 2.5, and 3 years old. And I hunted them. I walk hunted them. That's how I did. I free casted them. I only had them up there. I don't even know why I had them up there. I was just coming around the road, coming out of the woods, and I had thrown them up there. So my first rigging experience was by accident. And then ever since that day, I have been, we've been rigging, but the bear population's better, so on and so on. We can, that's a whole nother topic for another day. But so those dogs I did Dale, and I did it on accident. I didn't know no better. And they would trail tracks. We talked about this. They would go find tracks and trail them. Where the dogs that I have now are more so going and finding the bear. Like I said, they'll go 400 or 500 yards. In fact, I had Spook about a month ago strike and went plumb top of the mountain and took off. And that was right at 500 yards. So just a different style, different way. I'm not sure how everybody else gets them started, but I've been using my GoPro up top back where I can see what the dogs are doing, and I can watch. I can see them through my back mirror, but it's hard. I can see the bottom of their legs. I can't really see the dogs working the air and what they're doing. So when I see one set down, I'll give him a few minutes, see if he gets back up. And if not, then I'm putting him back in the box. And I've got like my A-litter, Axe, super good nose, works out tracks really well. But he's the same way. I can put him up and he's good for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then he'll start sitting down. And I even had him lay down a couple of times. And to me, knowing what I know through the canine, like the law enforcement side of training, is when a dog is stressed or a dog is trying to avoid something, and that avoidance, we're laying down, we're sitting down, we're not sure about this, they're not going to be productive. So I'm trying to work on him to get him where he needs to be, because he's a good value to me. Like, he does a really good job on the ground, and I'd like him to do it from up there, but he's not. So basically I'm saying that every dog that I've got is not just a natural rig dog. We have those, and I'm sure a lot of guys have those. I've got dogs I can put up there and it's no problem. And I've got dogs that I'm having to work through the process. So just seeing if that's the norm for everybody and how everybody handles that. Another thing that I'd come back from hits. I'd seen Dr. Nathan Hall. I'd had him on here a while back. He's at Texas Tech, and he does all the studies for canines and detection and stuff like that. And we learned from Dr. Hall when I had him on, that for every 15 minutes of sniffing, it's like a dog runs a mile. So every 15 minutes, the dog's, using that nose. And when I say using that nose, I mean actively using that nose. I don't mean just standing there letting the wind hit them in the face. I'm saying that they're actively intaking breath. So it would sound like this, and everybody's heard this sound. It'd be like that dog sniffing. He's popping in, he's popping in, he's popping in. So I got to thinking about that too while I was rigging one day. I had it was probably almost 2 hours. I didn't do nothing that day. I rigged roads and went back and re-rigged them, and I just didn't have any luck, and I had the dogs for up there for about 2 hours. So I got to thinking, I'm like, all right, so if these dogs are actively sniffing while they're up there, and I've run for 2 hours, that's 8 miles that dog physically has done, and he's not even hit the ground yet. So do we ever take in consideration, and I know through watching my GoPro and watching the dogs, that they're not actively sniffing for 2 hours. But when they get in an odor, they will start that sniffing behavior. They're not just kind of using everybody that rigs sees the dogs, they're up there, they're working the wind, they're back and forth. It's when those lips start popping and that nose starts actively, like, he's taking in and processing. That's the sniffing breaths I'm talking about. But have we ever taken into consideration that, if my dog's up there and he's actively working for, 15, 20, 30 minutes over an hour period, that dog is already physically exerting himself before we ever turn him off the truck? And it kind of hit me one day. I was coming around the mountain, and I actually heard the dog's nose popping. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I slowed down. I was looking through my rearview mirror, and that's when that kind of hit me, what Dr. Hall had said. And I started, trying to calculate, like, all right, well, I don't want my dogs, basically physically exerting themselves for 8 miles and then me turning them down and having a 10-mile race. Like, that's not really fair. But anyway, just something to think about and watch. If your dogs are actively sniffing like that for a long period of time or any duration of time, they are exerting energy, whether we think it or not, even though they're on the truck. And that was another thing that I saw with these pups is Bridger, the natural one, like he's good to go. But Briggs, it took a lot out of him just standing up there, and roads are rough and rocky, and him balancing himself and him doing it. I noticed that it was taking more of a toll on him than it was Bridger. And Bronx is kind of in the middle. Bronx I can get a little bit more out of. He's not to Bridger's standard, but he's definitely not to Briggs's standard. So just taking all that in consideration and watching how the dogs are rigging, what they're doing, their body language, are they exerting energy? Are they not exerting energy? Do we take that into consideration? And I know that you guys have heard me say this, like when I'm rigging, if I'm doing 10 miles an hour or maybe 15, like that's fast for me. I like to take it slow, and I really want my dogs to work that air. We may be getting just a couple of molecules of blown odor, and I want my dogs to be able to pick that up, and I want them to open on it. Where if I'm driving faster, yeah, absolutely they can strike, no problem. But the chances of those dogs striking as far and an older track or bear that has been there, you are lowering your chances. So just food for thought, something to think about, stuff that I've been thinking about while I've been out with the young dogs and just watching my dogs more. Like I said, I've been by myself more this year. I've slowed down a little bit, trying to pay attention to other things. And I want to have a really good solid pack. I want solid dogs, period. But I've tried to slow down a little bit and pay a lot more attention to what's going on instead of just kind of hoorah to rail, here we go. Let's, I'm going hunting, dog strike, turn them loose, go, either pick them up, go to the tree, catch them, whatever I'm doing. Like I've tried to slow down a little bit and enjoy it for one, and pay more attention to what each individual dog's doing, how they contribute to the pack. And I spend a lot of time with the dogs on top of the truck, and that's what brought this up, which brings me to another issue that I'm having. All right. So I got 2 females. Y'all have heard me talk about Sass. She's pushing 7. Well, now she's probably 18 months old. And Lady's 14 months old. And I got Lady started this spring, like right before I went to Canada. And I'm very pleased with how she's coming along. These are the first 2 dogs. I got to back up and tell you this because I think it's important on what I'm going to tell you. These are the first 2 dogs that I actually started the scent imprinting on. Sassy, well, actually, it was Lady's litter, and I got Sassy about the same time. She was she's a month or so older, but I started her right in the process with them. So these are the first 2 that I actually did the imprinting on. Both of them seem, and I'm saying they seem to be very track-minded, which I'm very pleased about because that's what I'm after. But I also want them to be able to move the track, pick their head up, and catch once they get it going. So these 2 dogs, which I have done at individual times, I'll put them up on the truck, and they're opening when my older dogs, and when I say my older dogs, I've been hunting the B gang, which is the 3-year-olds and the 2. I got two 3-year-olds and 2 2-year-olds. That's what I've been hunting them with. I'm calling them the C gang. So I got A, B's, and C's. So we're down to the C's now. But so I've been hunting them with the 3-year-olds and the 2-year-olds, and they are opening on the truck when the older dogs are not. So they done that a time or 2, and I just keep driving. I'm like, I don't know about this. But one day I was coming off the mountain. Lady was in the truck, and you know how I feel about dogs barking in the truck. was coming off the mountain, and she opens up in the truck. And I'm like, what is she doing? The other dogs, like I'm looking, I flip it on where I can see my GoPro, where I can watch what's going on. The other dogs are, they're working the air, but they're not saying anything. So I just kept driving. So I go off the mountain and I come back underneath, and, this is a good ways. I come back underneath the mountain. I get right around the same area that she struck. Sassy is on top of the truck, and Sassy just starts whimpering like, and I'm like, well, that's strange. And I drive around the mountain probably 200 yards, and the truck explodes. Poof. So I get Lady out. I turn Sassy off the truck because she never started whimpering the whole way around there. I get her and Lady. Lady's in the box. I turn them out. And actually, Lady went and found this track. It was probably 150 or 200 yards off the road. She finds it, opens on it. Sassy pulls right there with her. I dumped the other dogs, and the race was on. We ended up treeing the bear after a almost 14-mile race and multiple road crossings, enough to make somebody nervous and paranoid. And anyway, I'm coming home that day, and I'm trying to figure out, did that dog open in the box? And I'm like, no, it's impossible. It's impossible. No, the other dogs would have opened. And then I'm looking at my map, and I'm like, we were directly beneath where she opened. So here's the process I'm going to go, and I've already worked on it a little bit. So here's the process I'm going to go through just to check. I hope that these dogs are that good. I hope that they can open with my other dogs not opening, because if that's the case, then I can really speak highly of the scent imprinting, and I've got some dogs that's got a better use of their nose, which is what I'm after. In the grand scheme of things, that's what I want. I want to be able to catch trail bear, tree bear that other people can't. That's my goal. I want to be able to do it when others can't. And I'm not there. I'm not even close to it. So the first thing I did is the next couple times I had them out, I put them out on deer just to make sure they're not running deer. And I didn't have any issue, didn't even have to do any corrections. The dogs would go up, they'd smell, boom, back to the truck. I didn't say a word to them. I've worked them through this process so they know. And I have not. So Lady ended up getting snake bit, I'm pretty sure. I couldn't find the holes, but it swelled up just like that, and it had to be a snake bite. So she's been laid up. In fact, this coming week will be the first time I'll get her out since then. So I haven't really give her the opportunity. Sassy, I've had her out twice. Well, no, I've had her out a couple times. She's starting tracks in front of the other dogs, which I'm very pleased about, but I've not had her open on the truck in front of the other dogs yet. So that leads me to believe that we're getting, I'm finding, a hotter track, because everybody's opening instead of just her opening on her own. But man, I'm going to let them run. I'm at the point where I feel pretty confident they're not running. Now, these dogs are both under a year old. They're under 20 months old. I know that they're going to make mistakes. I know that there's a possibility they're going to run junk. I know that. But I also want to find out what they're doing. And if they can put an end to the beginning of that, I'm going to be tickled. Which leads me to one other thing that I want to say before we cut this off. Guys, you can't be afraid to turn them dogs loose. Yes, I held mine 2 times. Well, one with both of them, and then the second time was just Sassy. And I'm from this point forward, I went back and done some foundation work. I know where I'm at, but holding the dogs back, not letting them run, especially at that age, we know they're going to mess up. We know that they're probably going to run trash in their life. And if they don't, I've never had an outstanding dog that didn't run trash at some point in their life. Like I've never had that. So for me, my expectations are, okay, it's going to happen. Clean it up. No big deal. Them running a deer or a coyote one time or two times is not going to break the bank. It's not going to switch them off of running bear. Oh, I want to clean it up. Absolutely. Well, I want to be pretty confident that when they're striking that it's not trash. Yes, absolutely. But I also know that I'm going to give them opportunity to make mistakes. And when if they make a mistake, then okay, I'll take a step back. I'll fix it. I'll clean it up, and we'll move forward. That's a part of dog training. That's a part of hunting hound. So that's just some things that I've been going through. This season is working on the rig, looking at things differently. It's been hard. Like it's been a tough season. I've had some extremely long races. I mean, 11 to 15 miles a couple times, a couple 10 miles. I don't know if that's average for everybody, but usually mine are 1 to 3 miles, somewhere in there. That's about average, I would say. I've been keeping my trip meter on my Garmin ever since I started having these long races. I've been making sure when I turn the dogs off the truck that I'm resetting that thing so I know how far they're going, because I'm trying to pay attention to that on top of, them being on top of the truck and how much energy they're exerting there. I'm trying to keep record of that. So, guys, I hope you're having a great season. We'll finish you up here in a couple weeks. Our early season comes in a couple weeks, and that'll kind of put us at the end of this until December. So, safe hunting. Thank you guys for tuning in to What's Up Wednesday. Do you like to be outdoors like I do? If so, unlock the wilderness with onX Maps. It is your ultimate guide to exploring, hunting, and conquering the great outdoors. With detailed maps, real-time tracking, and exclusive access to public and private lands, onX Maps is your key to adventure. Discover the possibilities and never get lost again with onX. So subscribe today using the promo code K920, letter K, number 920, and know where you stand.